matters financial and geopolitical from the frontier. Thank you for stopping by. Home thoughts. The truth is we never stop being children, terrible children, covered in sores and knotty veins and tumors and age spots, but ultimately children. In other words, we never stop clinging to life because we are life. Roberto, Bolaño. In some lost fold of the past, we wanted to be lions and we're no more than castrated cats. We interpret life at moments of the deepest desperation. I think that's a very powerful point, actually. Then I like two more comments, one by Wallace Stegner. Truth is to be handled gingerly. That's an egg with a very thin shell. I enjoyed catching up with Mr. and Mrs. Chalub yesterday, and with Mr. Hervé Gogo, all asked, where is Hannah? I said, Hannah is back at school, getting an education. And I told her about these good wishes this morning, and I think she was pleased and would have been very disappointed otherwise. Dilma Rousseff is still facing a challenge in Brazil. Let's see how she manages it. The thing is, her opponents are hardly whiter than white. I like this photograph capturing the atomic blast of WASP prime test in Nevada. Very interesting piece in the Foreign Policy forecasting the aftermath of a ruling on China's 9-line, the arbitration tribunal of 5 impartial experts that has been considering the Philippines' suit against China under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, will soon hand down its final decision. What will Beijing do in response to the tribunal's impending final award? Ignoring it in silence does not appear to be a feasible option. Some have speculated that a largely adverse decision might lead China to dramatize its protest by withdrawing from the UN CLOS system as permitted upon 1 year's notice. Yet, denunciation of the treaty could not occur in time to relieve China of its obligation to comply with the arbitration award, a little bit like the ICC. China would also be surrendering its future opportunities to influence the development of UN CLOS as it relates to many other issues important to Beijing. President Obama arrived in Saudi Arabia yesterday, met with King Salman in Riyadh. Al Arabiya had an article at Erga's Palace. Here are the names of Obama's delegation: Susan Rice, National Security Advisor; Ashton Carter, U.S. Secretary of Defense; Joseph Westphal, U.S. Ambassador to Saudi Arabia; Lisa Monaco, Assistant to the President for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism; Benjamin Rhodes, Deputy National Security Advisor for Strategic Communications and Speechwriting; White House Press Secretary; Brennan, Director of the CIA; Robert Malley, Senior Advisor to the President for Counter-ISIS, and White House Coordinator for Middle East, North Africa and the Gulf; Jeff Prescott, Senior Director for Iran, Iraq, Syria and Gulf States; Sean Misko, Director of Gulf States. And I concluded by saying the theme is security, security and security. The American people send their greetings, and we're very grateful for your hospitality, not just for this meeting, but for hosting the GCC US Summit that's taking place tomorrow. Obama told King Salman, but he was greeted Obama by a lower level delegation as King Salman opted to welcome Gulf leaders instead for a regional summit on security. I'll put up a photograph of the Deputy Crown Prince, who's the man calling the shots, and Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, exchanging views on a number of issues in Riyadh. It transpires that the PR firm Corvus developed content for the Saudi Arabian Embassy's YouTube and Twitter pages and ran the Twitter account for the Syrian Opposition Coalition. Very interesting piece by Pankaj Mishra. Gangsta Islam has little to do with religion. Islam's borders are bloody, Samuel Huntington once wrote, and so are its innards. Since the 9/11 attacks, conventional wisdom has fueled a bizarre search for the Islamic roots of modern terrorism. Hassan al-Sabah, a good starting point, Islamic fanaticism appeared to trump every likely explanation, historical, sociological, psychological, for the attacks and others that followed. Islam seemed in dire need of moderates, if not a reformation, and many a quixotic government program was launched to encourage both. Despite their DIY interpretations of jihad, men like Osama bin Laden and his deputy Zawahiri at least demonstrated some elementary knowledge of Islamic tradition and history. Many of the terrorists involved in recent attacks on Paris and Brussels seem really to have stepped inside a mosque. These outcasts and delinquents, I think I was referring to them like the folks in L'Étranger, Albert Camus, were better known for their cocaine consumption and drunken carousing than for their knowledge of the Hadith. Indeed, their recruiting sergeant Khalid Zarqani assured them that past criminal convictions were not an obstacle to the Islamic cause, but a vital foundation. This is the danger of what the Moroccan-Belgian writer Hindi Frame, who authored a book about the Brussels district of Molenbeek, calls a little Islam, some patently bogus religious claim that's then mixed with a profound knowledge of guns and safe houses and the underground scene. For exponents of Gangsta Islam, mass murder represents an act of self-empowerment, not all that different from what Oscar Wilde called an intensified assertion of individualism. Very powerful essay in Bloomberg View, do take a look. Russia is starting to weaponize electoral processes in Europe, says Georg Forbrick. And this is talking about the Lisa affair, where a Russian girl said she was raped and created a huge, they're saying the Lisa affair was a real eye-opener. The mobilization in Germany shows a reach by the Kremlin into the political workings of Europe's largest economy that goes far beyond the frequent policy hazings meted out by its English language media arms, RT Television and Sputnik News Service. Putin's longtime foreign minister Sergei Lavrov broke with diplomatic convention in late January to accuse Germany of a cover-up in the Lisa affair. That outraged Merkel's government prompted Lavrov's counterpart to issue a rare personal rebuke and led the Chancellery to order the BND spy agency to probe the Kremlin's role in the scandal. This is quite sophisticated, isn't it, by the Russians? Angolan cartoonist Sergio Piçarra on the global fallout following the release of the Panama Papers. It's a cartoon, a rather powerful one. According to PRI, the world, you can still take a bus into Syria, even into IS-held areas. George Soros is saying China's debt-fueled growth echoes the US in 2007 and 2008. March credit data is a warning, he's saying. Let's move on to the currency markets. The euro is at 112.93. The dollar index is firmed up above 94, which is that key level I've spoken about. It's at 94.53. Japanese yen 109.69. Swissy 0.9712. The pound 143.09. It's had a strong few sessions. The Aussie, which was above 0.78, 0.7810. India rupee 66.275. South Korean won 1133.66. The Rial 352.77. Egyptian pound 8.87. And the rand, when I looked last, is at a fresh 4-month high of 14.2237. The dollar index, this is an interesting chart put up by David Inglis, and you can see, for me, the key level remains 93. He's asking, where do we go from here? Commodity markets, gold has popped its head through 1250, last trading at 1257. So a good strong move today. Crude oil roundabout unchanged after a strong finish yesterday. US crude oil at $44.14. I'll put up a one-year chart. The way it plunged after Doha and then rebounded very, very strongly was in fact a bullish trading signal. It feels as if it wants to regain the 50 level on Brent. However, frankly, this could unravel at any moment, and I still see a fresh 2016 low print this year. Mr. Erdogan will see you now. Welcome to banking's toughest job. Erdem Bashki's biggest accomplishment may be that people still talk about the independence of Turkey's central bank. The 49-year-old former academic was one of the world's most innovative and unpredictable central bankers during a 5-year term that ended Tuesday and wasn't renewed. Now they've got a 40-year-old Murat Setinkaya, one of the toughest jobs in central banking. Have to manage Erdogan's pressure for rapid cuts in borrowing costs, whilst also showing enough independence to maintain the confidence of foreign investors who own more than $82 billion of Turkey's stocks and bonds. Gulf investors are very big. Let's move on to Africa. Cling on. African leaders inviting coups. This is Kofi Annan. Long-serving African leaders were unnecessarily exposing their regimes to military coups in their countries if they continued clinging to power. Speaking to the media at the 5th Tana High-Level Forum on Security in Africa, Annan urged leaders to leave office when their time was up. I think Africa has done well by and large. The coups have more or less ended. Generals are remaining in their barracks, but we are creating situations which may bring them back. If a leader doesn't want to leave office, if the leader stays on for too long, and elections are seen as being gamed to suit a leader, and he stays term after term after term, the tendency may be the only way to get him out is through a coup or people taking to the streets. Neither approach can be seen as an alternative to democracy, to elections, or to parliamentary rule. Constitutions and the rules of the game have to be respected. He's really this outspoken, and I like this quote of his: let's not fight hate with hate. Congo police fired tear gas at anti-government protesters. Police in southeastern DRC fired tear gas on Wednesday to disperse hundreds of anti-government protesters who accused security forces of vandalizing posters of opposition leaders, human rights activists said. Political tension is high in Congo, where opponents of President Kabila say he's trying to cling on to power beyond the end of his mandate in 2016. Violent protests over the issue in January 2015 killed more than 40 people. More than 500 supporters of the opposition UNAFEC party clashed with police in the Kenyan neighborhood of Lumumbashi. This is the home of Kabila's most serious opponent to date, Moishi Katumbi. Kigamboni Bridge in Tanzania seen from 30,000 feet. Everyone's got terribly excited about this bridge. And why not? South African all shares at 4-week highs. It's up 6.11% this year. Sell at any price order triggers share rout for African insurer. Look at what happened. Dollar Rand, very strong. People looking through Jacob Zuma now. Egyptian EGX 30, that's up 11.33% year to date. Nigerian all shares down 13.47% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange is down 6.12% year to date. Zambia dollar bond yields rise after Moody's downgrade. Yields on the country's $1.25 billion debt due from 2027 rose 4 basis points to 11.52%, though essentially shuttered out of the market for now, notwithstanding that the kwacha is the comeback currency of 2016. KCB Group to manage opening of Chase Bank. This was the big news yesterday in the Financial Times. I liked what I was reading. Listen to this. Kenya's central bank has declared a new normal in what it expects of lenders and its own supervision and announced that KCB will manage the reopening of Chase Bank, which was put into receivership a fortnight ago. Patrick Njoroge, governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, said lenders in East Africa's largest economy would no longer be able to hide behind fuzzy numbers and creative accounting. Such practices have led to Mr. Njoroge putting 3 banks into receivership since he took office last June. The new normal will require following the law in terms of banking practices and the requirement of strong governance of responsibility of our supervision and transparency. He said they will conduct a detailed due diligence to determine the details of any transaction, the governor said, so essentially they're going to be setting the terms. Receivership lasts a year, but one person familiar with the due diligence said a decision could be expected within a few months. There are still a lot of stones to turn over, and we have no idea what's under them, the person said. Yesterday I was saying KCB is sitting in pole position. It's able to drive a hard bargain in this whole process of consolidation, and most importantly, it is also acting in the national interest. It marks the coming of age of the bank. On the 18th of April, I wrote a story about Chase Bank and the story of the 3 wise monkeys, Mizaru, Kikazaru, and Iwazaru. I said Tier 3 banks are finding themselves at the bleeding edge of this move to a more rules-based system. Years of resisting increased capital requirements has meant that these Tier 3 banks are pirouetting their businesses on wafer-thin capital. Recent events, Dubai Bank, Imperial Bank, National Bank, and Chase Bank now means investors and depositors are placing considerably less credence on the accounts as presented. Then, in a double whammy, depositors have embarked on a deposit flight to quality, further undercutting them. Without shareholders now stumping up bucket loads of capital, these banks are in effect zombie banks. The process of consolidation is now market-led. I appreciate the authorities are keen to keep this orderly and not allow it to turn disorderly. The important point for the authorities is not to provide a blanket put option and to erect a firewall in the right place. And I think they're doing exactly that. 11th of April, I wrote a piece about how the core banking system is sound. Foreign exchange reserves here in Kenya rose to a 15-month high as inflows grow. $440 million higher, now $7.51 billion. Exchange rate has been stable, impact of lower oil prices, improved balance of payments. We see the current account deficit this year closing at 8% of GDP. I like this photograph, which was in the Star, of these 2 outliers, Patrick Njoroge, the central bank governor, and Joshua Oigara of KCB. Nairobi all-share up 0.8% this year. Safaricom up 7.36% so far this year, and nearing in on a record. I'll put up a chart for you to look at. KCB is at a 2016 high. NSE 20 is down 2.51% so far this year. The Communications Authority has accused the disbanded board of soliciting bribes and falsifying mileage allowances. This is according to the regulator Francis Wangusi. Board member went to Airtel seeking bribes to quash demands for a controversial 2.1 billion shilling license fee. That's probably a given. Safaricom, as I said, up 0.86% to score another fresh 2016 high, and at the close yesterday was trading up 3.18%. This is a chart breakout right here. It's up 7.36% year to date, and all set to sprint higher ahead of its full year earnings release. Kenya Airways firmed 1.14% to close at 440. It was trading at 450 at the closing bell. The CEO reached out to the media last week and struck a confident tone. The share price has held the line here for a few weeks, and I think it will take a little to take us up to 5. In point of fact, the big news, of course, was the press conference at the central bank. KCB set to acquire a majority stake in Chase, will conduct a detailed due diligence before acquiring that stake. KCB CEO Joshua Oigara might be better termed the consolidator-in-chief, and is having KCB play a catalytic role in this important juncture of consolidation. All Chase Bank receivership branches will open by Wednesday, April 27. The online and mobile banking services will also become available. CBL customers will have immediate access to their deposits up to a maximum of $1 million. KCB rallied 0.59% to close at a fresh 2016 high. Good ticket size. It's obviously going higher. And Kengen is another share that's closed at a 2016 high. That closed at 8.10. It's now up 14.084% year to date. I'm off to to Mombasa, my hometown. Looking forward to that. Where I'm speaking at a conference that Old Mutual are holding, so you will excuse me tomorrow because I'll be by the beach. Once again, thank you kindly for stopping by.